Every floor, every door, your life inside the White House power structure. You were 26 years old and you were annotating a draft memo about grain subsidy reform when the call comes. Not a dramatic call, no urgent music, no trembling voice. Just your supervisor at the Office of Management and Budget saying your name once, flatly, and telling you to be at a specific address in Foggy Bottom by 7 the following morning. You have been at OMB for 14 months. You know how to read a federal budget line the way other people read a clock face, instantly, fluently, without effort. That is apparently the thing that got you here. You arrive at the address wearing the only suit you own that fits correctly. A man checks your identification against a list, says nothing complimentary or otherwise, and walks you down a hallway that smells of carpet cleaner and institutional permanence. You are handed a blue badge, given a 30-minute orientation that covers what you cannot photograph, whom you cannot speak to in certain corridors, and how to behave when the motorcade is moving. Then, you are handed a stack of briefing folders, 4 inches thick, and shown to a desk in the Eisenhower Executive Office Building. Welcome to the White House complex. You are a junior policy analyst. You earn $58,000 a year, and you share a cubicle with a man named Derek who drinks 3 energy drinks before noon and has strong opinions about semicolons. This is not glamorous. You understand that immediately. The White House power structure from the inside, at your level, looks like a river delta. Thousands of tributaries, each carrying water towards some central sea you cannot yet see. Your work is to push paper upstream. You analyze, you annotate, you send memos to people who send memos to people who are in rooms you do not yet enter. You are asked questions by people who will use your answers without crediting you. You answer them anyway, and you answer them carefully because you have understood from the first week that accuracy is the only currency that travels in this building without a name attached. 6 months in, you are assigned to a task force reviewing pharmaceutical pricing legislation. There are 12 people on the task force. You are the most junior. The task force is led by a deputy assistant secretary, whose attention you will never hold for longer than 40 seconds, and that is fine. You do the work that others consider too granular. You read the full text of bills that everyone else summarizes. You find, in a subsection of an amendment to a subsection of a healthcare reconciliation package, a provision that would inadvertently cap reimbursement rates for rural critical access hospitals in a way that no one intends and no one has noticed. You write a 2-page memo, you send it to Derek, who sends it upward. 3 days later, you are in a room with 6 people who are 4 levels above you, and one of them points at you and says, "This is the one who caught it." You feel the temperature of the room change. Not toward warmth, toward attention. That is different and more useful. You are promoted into a staff position on the Domestic Policy Council by the time you are 28. This is where you first encounter what real power looks like up close. It is relentless and it is tired. The people who hold it are not sleeping enough. They are drinking coffee at 11 at night in rooms with no windows, making decisions that will appear in newspapers 3 days later, as if they emerged fully formed from some vast and confident intelligence. In reality, the decisions emerged from arguments in conference rooms, compromises in hallways, and memos written at 2 in the morning by people like you, who are beginning to understand that governing is mostly the management of impossible trade-offs under partial information with inadequate time. You are, by this point, in the building itself, the White House, not the EEOB annex, the West Wing. Your badge has changed colors. The hallways are narrower than you expected. The ceilings are lower. The sense of compressed consequence is not metaphorical. It is architectural. Everything here has been designed to concentrate action, to force proximity between decisions and decision makers, to eliminate the friction that distance creates. You notice that people speak differently here than they did at OMB. Shorter sentences, less hedging, more eye contact that calculates rather than connects. Your first significant failure comes in year 3. You have drafted language for an executive order on housing affordability. You have been careful. You have run the language by OMB, by the Council of Economic Advisors, by 2 career attorneys in the Office of Legal Counsel. Everyone signs off, the order goes out. Within 48 hours, 3 governors have publicly announced that the order conflicts with state zoning law in ways that will trigger litigation, and the Secretary of HUD is on the phone with your director asking who reviewed this. Your name is not on the order. Junior staff are never on orders, but your director knows, and the deputy assistant for domestic policy knows, and you know, and the knowledge sits in you like a stone. You drafted language that was legally defensible and politically naive, and those are not the same thing, and you did not understand that yet, and now you do. You do not apologize in the meeting. You are not asked to. You are asked what happened, and you explain what happened with full accuracy, including what you missed and why. The room is quiet. Your director looks at you for a moment that feels much longer than it is. Then she says, "Fix it," and you do. The fix takes 11 days and requires you to build relationships with counsel in 3 agencies you had no previous contact with. You learned in those 11 days more about interagency dynamics than you learned in the previous 3 years. You learned that the White House's authority is more negotiated than it appears from outside. You learn that the people who resist White House directives are not always wrong, and that your job is not to override their concerns, but to either answer them or acknowledge them honestly and absorb the political cost. You learn that power without persuasion is brittle. You carry that lesson forward. By year 4, you are a special assistant to the president for domestic policy. The title sounds significant, and the title is significant, but what it means, day to day, is that you are now in the room where the final framing of domestic policy decisions happens before they go to the president. You sit at tables with cabinet officials. You push back on cabinet officials. This is new and strange. The first time you disagree, audibly and in a room, with a cabinet secretary, you feel your own pulse in your hands. She looks at you with an expression that is not hostile and not friendly and says, "Explain your objection." You do. She considers it. She says, "That's a fair point. We'll revise." You go back to your office and stand there for a moment because that was the first time someone with that much authority took your objection seriously, and you had not understood until that moment that authority can be earned incrementally through the accumulation of having been right repeatedly and without agenda. The policy work is the part the public never sees. The visible White House is press briefings and motorcades and State of the Union addresses. The actual White House is this. You are at a table at 6:30 on a Wednesday morning, and someone has put in front of you a one-pager that argues for a particular course of action on a labor regulation, and the argument is technically sound and politically convenient and probably wrong, and you have to decide in the next 3 hours what you believe and how strongly you believe it and what you are willing to absorb to say so. You have developed by now a set of internal tools for making these decisions. You have learned to separate the question of what is true from the question of what is useful, and to resist the temptation to collapse them when collapsing them is convenient. You have learned that most policy debates are not debates between people who want different outcomes. They are debates between people who have prioritized different timelines. A decision that is politically optimal in 18 months may be substantively harmful in 5 years. Your job, as you understand it, is to represent the 5-year version in a room that mostly cares about 18 months. This makes you at times difficult to manage. You are not unaware of that. You watch colleagues who are more adept at matching the room's energy rise faster than you. They are not wrong to do this. The ability to read and adjust to institutional dynamics is a genuine skill. But you have noticed that institutions tend to promote the people who can read the current direction, and those people are not always the best equipped to tell the institution when its current direction is mistaken. You exist in this tension. You are still deciding how to exist in it. Year 6, you are 32. You are now a deputy assistant to the president, which means you are a step below the most senior staff in the West Wing. There are maybe 40 people in the building who have more institutional authority than you do. This would have seemed impossible to you at 26, annotating subsidy memos in a cubicle. It seems, at 32, like a precise measurement of how much pressure a person can absorb before either breaking or becoming load-bearing. There are days when the work feels like operating the control panel of something vast and consequential and only partially understood, with incomplete instruments in real time. There are days when it feels like exactly what it is. A group of intelligent, overextended human beings trying to make decisions that will outlast their tenure and trying to make them responsibly. The romance of power, if you ever had it, has long been replaced by something more durable. Not cynicism, but a precise respect for difficulty. You have also learned what the power structure actually looks like from the inside, at every level, having now moved through most of them. At the bottom, it is process and patience, learning to do the work well enough that the work travels upward without your name attached, and that is fine. That is the correct expectation. At the middle levels, it is relationship and credibility. Your ability to be in rooms depends entirely on whether the people above you trust your judgment and trust your honesty, and trust that you will tell them things they don't want to hear before those things become problems. At the top, or near it, it is something stranger. It is the management of your own certainty. The higher you rise, the fewer people tell you you're wrong. The fewer people tell you you're wrong, the more you must develop the internal machinery to tell yourself. The president you serve is not a character in a story. That person is a human being with full complexity, full limitation, full capacity for both vision and error. And your job in relation to that person is not loyalty in the sycophantic sense, it is a more demanding thing. To provide the clearest possible picture of reality, filtered through your best judgment, knowing that you will sometimes be wrong and that being wrong has consequences you will not be able to fully track. You have been in the Oval Office 11 times in your current role. Each time, you are acutely aware that what you say in that room, how you frame it, which details you lead with and which you bury, shapes what the most powerful executive in the country understands about a situation. That awareness does not paralyze you. It disciplines you. There's a meeting happening right now, not hypothetically, not in the future, happening now, down the hall from where you stand in a corridor that smells faintly of old wood and something electrical, waiting to be called in. The meeting is about a domestic spending allocation that has 3 competing interpretations among the senior staff, and you hold the fourth. And the fourth is uncomfortable because it requires acknowledging a miscalculation made 6 months ago that no one has been willing to name directly. You have written a 1-pager. You have it in your hand. You have been over it 4 times. The door will open in approximately 3 minutes. You will walk into the room. You will be the youngest person at the table by at least a decade, except for one. The senior advisor will look at you and you will recognize in that look the same calculation she made when you first arrived. What does this person understand? What are they willing to say? And can they be trusted to say it clearly? You have answered that question for 6 years by showing up and being right more than you are wrong and being honest about the gap between the two. You are about to answer it again. Outside, the country continues. People are in their lives, in offices, in hospitals, in schoolrooms, in fields and warehouses. And the decisions made in this building will reach them in forms they mostly won't recognize. A subsidy adjusted, a regulation revised, a funding stream redirected, a negotiating position hardened. The distance between policy and person is immense, and the White House, at every level, is where people try to manage that distance responsibly, most of the time imperfectly, sometimes with consequence that matters. The door opens, you straighten your jacket, not for anyone watching, no one is watching, for yourself, because the habit of taking yourself seriously enough to stand up straight in a room where what you say matters is a habit you have earned, slowly over 6 years of ascending a structure built on the weight of the decisions it has held. You are 32 years old. You are the person who catches the provisions others miss, who remembers the 5-year version when the room wants 18 months, who can be wrong and say so and return the next day with a correction. You walk through the door. The room does not go quiet when you enter. It doesn't need to. Your presence is expected. Your contribution is expected. What happens next will depend, as it always has, on the quality of what you've prepared and the honesty you're willing to bring to the table regardless of what it costs you politically. The memo in your hand will either move something or it won't. Either way, you'll be back here tomorrow. That is the job. That has always been the job. There's no resolution at the end of it, only the ongoing responsibility to do it well, and the knowledge that doing it well is never finished, and the choice, made fresh every morning, to try anyway.